day, my name is Audrey and welcome to the Builder and Ubiquity Foundation Award presentation to the top 6 SEEDINVEST Acceleration Program. Today we're here to present the top 6 of the 2022 SEEDINVEST Acceleration Program, and we're also presenting the award to them. Beyond that, we will get to know a little bit more about their businesses and how their journey came to this point. So our first guest today from the top 6 is Peterblaze Atelier. I'm assuming your name is Peter?
Yeah, yes, obviously Peter.
Okay, welcome Peter and congratulations for being an awardee. And tell us about Peterblaze Atelier.
So Peterblaze Atelier is a menswear fashion brand.
Okay.
We try to pitch bespoke at a relatively affordable price for people who feel like luxury is quite expensive. And we major mostly in kaftans, what you call the traditional outfits, agbadas, and occasionally we dabble into custom tuxedos or corporate wear, corporate suit as the case may be, because we realized that in Nigeria gradually we're tilting into representing our culture in terms of the fashion what we wear. So it is based off that notion that we thought it wise that on a scale of 10 men, in the public, we realized that 7 would rather wear kaftan because it's quite easy and smart and to move around, as opposed to having them wear the English, suits, tuxedos, except when they have occasions that demands that. So based off that, we started the fashion brand, and with a couple of stories that has gone through, university days. Oh, I like what you're wearing. Can you buy this when you're coming back from school and all of that? And having a personal interest, trying to use whatever we have gained over the years in terms of funds to actually contribute our little quota to helping people who I can relate with. Like I said earlier, people I can relate with in terms of people who are suffering from asthma.
Okay.
Because since I was 2, I've been one of them. So I can relate to when they have those crises. So in my little way, we have contributed to gifting out, for every piece you buy. Take for example, you walk into our store and you order a tuxedo or a kaftan. Indirectly, you're saying you're paying for one gentleman to head up for somebody else.
Yeah.
So so for us is give someone a sense of style and also give someone out there
back to the society.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's very, very interesting. So let's go back to the kind of service you're offering, with your product, which is you're giving people a feel of luxury,
yes,
but in an African context.
Exactly.
And I must say, I think you guys are getting away with too much in this fashion industry because the women are now left out. We now have even more accessories than before. We're still a bit formal in a way. There's still a formal expectation, but somehow the men just seems to go into formal meetings with the look of the, African look, and it's easily acceptable. But maybe we have to commend people like you with the kind of simplicity you have brought into that, so they don't always have to be buttoned up and tied up every time. In fact, it's on rare occasions these days that you find people really dressing highly formal.
So I think it's based on your personal style. Now, regardless of the fact that you do a 9 to 5, these people, they have their work ethics, saying you can wear certain outfits. But when you are your own boss, your own person, you're probably an entrepreneur, and you could decide to say, what, I want to tone this down. I mean, some organizations these days are turning a bit of their work in terms of work costume, like I will put it out there. Back then, to be in a bank, it was a must that you must have a suit.
Yes.
But these days they're a bit toning it down to, if you don't have a suit, wear a shirt.
Yeah.
There were times where it had to be just one particular color, but now they are now getting stylish. Like for example, I don't want to call any brand.
Yeah, of course.
They now walk in line with, this is our brand color. Can you get a stripe tie that blends in terms of your brand? They're now allowing people wear traditionals
to be more creative.
To be creative, in your industry. So I feel fashion is just your personality. That's just pretty much it.
So take us back to, you mentioned back in school, you started. So how long have you been doing this business?
Business-wise, I would say in between 1 or 2 years, registered. But before then, it was just a thing of play. You look good. Like, where did you buy your stuff? And back then in school, for those of us who grew up in Lagos, you could understand, you could relate with the Balogun market back in the day. in between that, I had a very huge appetite for going to the markets.
Interesting.
Even in my married states, I go to the market myself.
That's
I'm leaving my
interesting.
wife to rest and all of that. So with all of that, I found a way to just go around getting good fabric, doing stuff that would eventually help people. So when I was in school, can you buy me this? I like what you were wearing. And there was a time when Justin Bieber just came out, then it was a Supra era. Can you buy me this sneakers? It was good. I liked it when you wore this. Can you get me this? So I would literally go to the market and buy stuff. And I found a way that for every 5,000 naira I bought it, I could make probably 2,000, and it felt good. So I continued in that line up until I realized that, and I've always wanted to have a fashion industry, but in my very shallow knowledge, I felt like for you to have a production house, you needed something
huge.
Big,
Yes.
What played in my mind was China, and I was pretty much maybe in my 20s, like, where will I get China money? I don't have that money, So I just felt, as I grew better, I matured in my knowledge, and I felt like, it started from just one room, and from one room we grew from one client that tomorrow is one of my biggest customers. When I had little faith, I got my first 9 to 5. I mean, I was done for a service, and I used my first salary, 40,000 at the time, to make 2 suits. And after 2 months, it was just in my wardrobe, nobody bought it. And after the second month, he bought it, and that was how all of that evolved up to now. So that's just the journey.
So what I hear you say, and this is something that is very important to us at GrantN400 Foundation, we are not just, telling these stories or allowing them share their journey with us, but the whole idea is to inspire other people who are in this journey or who are thinking about going into this journey, to bring all the different sides of it, leading up to an award like this, and prospective awards and recognition that you deserve. So in this case, what I hear you say is you look for how to satisfy every client one way or the other, and you are looking to have that unique satisfaction from them on their end. Now tell us about your social impact. I find that very interesting, to be honest, because I myself am an asthmatic patient and I struggle with that as well, and it's a very serious issue that we have not started paying attention to yet, because in every part of the world you find is in highly populated and low-income communities having issues with a breathing issue, as the case may be, and this is because of pollution. And here the only pollution we see is filtered plastic and all that. People forget about air pollution. And of course, particularly in Nigeria, where that is going to be very critical is in the river states, where there's a lot of soot in the air. And I project in another 10 years, there's going to be health issues for anybody who is there at a very young age. So I feel for the kids you're bringing in there, and I think it's something that really has to be addressed from our source of power generator, fossil fuel we're using, people using kerosene, and the buses and all that. So there's a lot going on. Even the smell of waste is also part of it. How we also process our food, where we set up our factories, processing factories. Those are things that we have not even started thinking about, in that case. So tell me, I know what it's like already to struggle with asthma, and I have a very simplified way of explaining how asthma feels to another person, because most people they don't understand what it means to to struggle for air,
exactly, when it's
breathe
free.
When it's free, and you will just be like, well, you're standing and breathing, but they don't understand what you're going through. So I would like to hear on from you, how would you describe asthma to a common man?
I mean, asthma is a typical example where, take the regular bus, the commercial bus you see on the road. I mean, you see one downfall pass and it is free. There is no occupant in there. And the door is that wide, but what you're seeing is just a very narrow space that can only contain you. But meanwhile, you have an open door to walk through. And that has been my case since I was 2. And what I would say is there's a lot of knowledge gap, from parents to people who are affected. And I witnessed all of that. There was a lot of knowledge gap between my parents. because at the time they didn't understand
They
how
never
to
really
treat,
do, yes.
you know?
They never really do.
I mean, my mom took me to every fetish native herb, doctor at the time, from the ones that I would drink, and instantly it would turn my system. The very last when I told them I could not take it any longer was, you wash the snail, the water, that slimy water, you drink it. And after doing all of that, nothing changed. It was at that point I started seeking for knowledge. At that time, internet wasn't a huge deal, consumption.
And not very many people understood asthma as well.
Exactly. So it took a friend of my dad's to tell him, go to the hospital. There's something they call inhaler. After trying a couple of stuff, they had no choice. They had no option. Like, let's give it a try. And it took just one puff. And one puff can save. As miraculous. I mean, it's just that miracle that you need at that point, And I figured that if one puff can save, give you a lifespan to, exist on, so many people cannot afford it. And that's where, I don't know where the government, stand on health, regarding so many things. Not everybody can afford it. That should come, there are so many things that should come freely, in a country like Nigeria.
Especially health issues you are born with.
Exactly. Where you could get, you walk into a store and you get an asthmatic, eventually an inhaler. I remember one time in Port Harcourt, while I was serving, coincidentally, I didn't know my inhaler was finished. Just the last often I used it. But because the crisis was that deep, I needed to use an inhaler. It was past 6. POS was just coming into play. ATMs were up and down the place and all of that. So it was fluctuating in terms of service and network and all of that. I walked into this chemist and I said to them, I want to buy a Ventolin inhaler. They tried the POS, it wasn't working. I was like, can you
give me
hold my phone? Give me one inhaler. I will come back for it tomorrow. I was using a BlackBerry at the time. And I thought it was a valuable item to buy inhaler for 1-2 at a time. The lady looked at me and told me no. That she won't take my phone and she won't give it to me. And then I was walking away. And a customer walked in and saw the way I was panicking, understood what I was going through, and I explained. And
you even had the breath to explain.
I was struggling because I explained, and luckily for me, the person knew the owner, called the owner, reported the issue. I don't know whatever happened, but they felt what I was feeling at that time. So imagine that didn't happen. What would have happened in that period? So for us, we know that feeling. We know we can empathize with these people. So when we buy that, we know what we're doing. We know that this can only last maybe 1 or 2 months. And we need to restock. We need to refill for somebody out there. So this is what. So for us, we are happy doing this. Some other people have their pet projects that they do, but for us, this is what we can relate to, and we're doing that for people. So
I'm actually really surprised, to be honest, because I know the awareness month is in May for asthma. And and then I used to post a lot on my platform that people were like, oh, I never knew it used to be like this. And for many people who were struggling with it, they also reached out and say, you know what, oh my God, you're just describing my life. And another thing I learned was that there are different triggers for different people. It's amazing, and broad, and nobody still knows today why people struggle with asthma in the first place, or certain allergies that lead to asthma symptoms. So I think this is something that really needs a lot of awareness, and especially in the medical space, in that sense, because if you can't understand what that person is going through and say, you know what, I want to be able to save this person right here and there, and then why do we have those services? Even some pharmacy they would not have, and they'll probably tell you, I don't answer, so you're selling salbutamol and you don't have an inhaler. How is that possible? Because
they don't understand. That's the thing.
It's very heartbreaking. And sometimes when I try to tell them that you should have at least, this is something is the most essential thing you can have after oxygen in any pharmacy, to be honest. So I'm excited. I think the team at BIF is also excited to hear that there's also a social part you have tied to your businesses, and which means that people can purchase more significantly or with meaning into what they do. So I'd like you to share